I built a tech empire worth over $200 million, a name that landed me on Forbes' list. But at my sister Sophia's wedding, my family didn't care. They placed me at table 19, tucked behind a pillar, as if I were a stranger at their celebration. Invisible, dismissed, forgotten, until the groom, Ethan, recognized me. Suddenly, I was their trophy, paraded for clout. That moment broke something in me. Not because they sidelined me, but because I realized I'd spent years chasing their approval. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's about reclaiming my worth. I'm Amelia Harper, 35, CEO of CyberGuard, a cybersecurity company protecting banks and governments from digital threats. I live in San Francisco, where my condo overlooks the bay, a far cry from the yellow bedroom I shared with Sophia in Portland, Oregon. Growing up, we were close, braiding hair, sharing secrets under butterfly stickers. But our parents, Margaret and Thomas, saw Sophia's charm as perfection and my love for coding as odd. "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" they'd ask, as if I was a puzzle they couldn't solve. I built CyberGuard from nothing, proving the world wrong, but my family never saw me. This is the story of how their indifference at Sophia's wedding, seating me at the edge of their world, pushed me to walk away. It's not about revenge in the petty sense, but about avenging my self-worth, choosing a life where I'm seen for who I am. If you've ever felt like you don't belong in your own family, this story is for you. It's about finding the courage to build your own table when the one you're given has no place for you. If you've ever been overlooked by those who should love you most, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Share your story in the comments. Have you had to fight for your place? This journey isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's felt invisible. 5 years ago, I stepped away from my family after they dismissed my dreams. I'd built CyberGuard, a company revolutionizing cybersecurity, from a tiny apartment, fueled by grit and late-night coding. Forbes called me a trailblazer, but my parents called it tinkering. When Sophia's wedding invitation arrived, I saw a chance to reconnect. I flew to Portland, spent $15,000 on a crystal gift, hoping they'd finally see me. Instead, I was an afterthought, seated at table 19, far from the family I longed to belong to. My mother's critical glances, my father's half-hearted nod, Sophia's distracted hug. It all stung deeper than I expected. But when Ethan, the groom, realized I was that Amelia Harper, my family's tune changed. Suddenly I was their pride, a networking opportunity. That shift wasn't love. It was transaction. I left that wedding not to hurt them, but to save myself. This isn't about spite. It's about choosing a life where my value isn't tied to their approval. Stick around to hear how I walked away, built my own community, and found peace in letting go. You deserve that freedom too. Let's dive into the moment I decided to stop chasing a family that gave up on me. My earliest memories are painted in shades of yellow, the color of the bedroom I shared with my sister, Sophia, in our Portland, Oregon home. We were 2 years apart. I was 35 now, but back then I was 7 and she was 5, a tiny shadow trailing my every step. That room was our sanctuary, its walls adorned with butterfly stickers we'd pressed up together, giggling as we stood on tiptoes. The ceiling seemed to hold a whole sky of those butterflies, glowing faintly under the nightlight. We'd lie on my bed, staring up, whispering secrets only sisters could share. Sophia's small hand would find mine during thunderstorms, her voice trembling as rain battered the windows. I'd weave stories of brave women, queens who fought dragons, explorers who charted unknown lands, to calm her fears. She'd fall asleep curled against me, her breathing soft, and I'd feel like her protector, her hero. Our days were filled with simple joys. We'd race through the backyard, chasing each other around the oak tree until we collapsed in a heap of laughter. Sophia loved when I'd braid her blonde hair, her blue eyes wide with trust as I twisted strands into clumsy plaits. I'd let her borrow my favorite books, even though she'd dog-ear the pages, and she'd share her candy stash, hidden under her pillow. We built forts from blankets and pillows, declaring them our castle, where we ruled as equals. One Christmas, when I was 8, we spent hours under those blankets, promising to be best friends forever. I gave her a locket with a tiny photo of us inside, and she wore it every day, her small fingers tracing its heart shape. I believed we'd never grow apart. Summers were our golden time. We'd bike to the library, tires humming on Portland's quiet streets, and spend hours lost in stories. I gravitated toward science books, fascinated by computers and code, while Sophia loved fairy tales. We'd sit cross-legged on the library floor, reading to each other, her voice lilting over princesses, mine steady over binary systems. Back home, we'd reenact our favorites in the backyard. She as the princess, me as the knight. I didn't mind. I loved seeing her smile. We'd end those days at the ice cream shop, splitting a sundae, chocolate syrup dripping down our chins. Those moments felt eternal, as if nothing could break us. But even then there were cracks. I was quieter, more inward, my dark hair often tangled from hours lost in thought. Sophia was a burst of light, outgoing, charming, her laughter filling any room. Our parents, Margaret and Thomas, noticed her first. They'd beam when she twirled in her dresses, but their eyes would skim over me, as if I blended into the wallpaper. I didn't see it clearly then, but I felt it. A subtle weight, a sense I wasn't quite enough. Still Sophia and I held fast. When she fell off her bike, scraping her knee, I'd carry her home, ignoring her weight on my small shoulders. When I struggled with a math problem, she'd sit beside me, cheering me on. We were a team, unshakable, or so I thought. Those years, before the world pulled us apart, were the foundation of who I am. They taught me love, loyalty, and the ache of losing something you can't reclaim. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about honoring that little girl who loved her sister fiercely, even as the world began to dim her light. As Sophia and I grew, the warmth of our yellow bedroom began to fade, replaced by a chill I couldn't name. Our parents, Margaret and Thomas, ran a thriving insurance agency in Portland, their lives a carefully curated display of success. Margaret managed the social calendar, ensuring we appeared perfect at their country club gatherings. Thomas worked long hours, his presence rare but commanding. They valued Sophia's qualities, her conventional beauty, her social grace, her eagerness to please. With her golden hair and bright blue eyes, she was their ideal daughter, a reflection of their aspirations. I was different, quiet, analytical, with dark hair and a preference for books over parties. I was a puzzle they didn't care to solve. By the time I was 10, their preference was clear, a silent script we all followed. "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" became the refrain of my childhood, a question that hung in the air like a fog. When Sophia joined the school choir at 8, Margaret clapped wildly at her recitals, praising her angelic voice. When I won a math competition, presenting a model of a computer circuit, Thomas nodded absently, asking if I'd considered dance lessons. Sophia's small achievements, a school play role, a friendship bracelet contest, were celebrated with dinners and photo albums. My victories, like building a website for a local charity at 12, were met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. "That's nice, Amelia," Margaret would say, her eyes already on Sophia's latest drawing. I learned to swallow the sting, to tuck my pride away. Their favoritism wasn't cruel, not in the obvious sense. It was subtle, woven into daily life. At family dinners, Sophia's stories about school friends dominated, while my talk of coding projects was cut short. "Let's not bore everyone," Thomas would chuckle, passing the potatoes. Margaret dressed Sophia in frilly dresses, photographing her for holiday cards, while I wore hand-me-downs, my photo an afterthought. When Sophia got sick, Margaret stayed home, fussing over her. When I sprained my ankle, I was told to tough it out. I began to see myself through their eyes, a strange, serious girl who didn't fit their vision of family. By middle school, the divide deepened. Sophia's charm won her friends effortlessly, her laughter a magnet at social events. I found solace in the computer lab, where I could control the rules. But even there, their voices followed me. When I was 13, I overheard Margaret tell a friend, "Sophia's our easy one. Amelia's so intense. I worry she'll never belong." The words carved a hollow in my chest. I stopped sharing my dreams, stopped expecting their praise. Instead, I poured myself into learning, staying up late to teach myself programming languages. Code didn't judge. It rewarded effort. Yet, every line I wrote was laced with a quiet hope they'd notice. The hardest moments were the milestones they missed. When I was 14, I designed a game that won a regional tech contest. I invited them to the award ceremony, heart pounding with hope. They didn't come. Sophia had a cheerleading tryout. Thomas later said, "We'll catch the next one." But the next one never mattered. Their absence taught me I was secondary, a footnote in their story. This wasn't about petty grudges. It was about surviving a love that felt conditional. My revenge, if you can call it that, began here. Not in hurting them, but in proving to myself I was enough. Those years shaped me, forging a resolve that would carry me to MIT, to CyberGuard, to a life they couldn't diminish. But the ache of their indifference lingered, a shadow I'd face again at Sophia's wedding. High school widened the chasm between me and my family, a time when I felt most invisible. While Sophia thrived in Portland's social scene, I carved a different path, one that set me apart but left me unseen by those I craved validation from. Sophia was 16, a cheerleader crowned prom queen, her blonde hair a halo under the spotlight. She dated the football captain, her name whispered with admiration in the halls. I was 18, president of the computer club, spending weekends in the lab coding apps and games. My dark hair was often pulled back, my eyes fixed on screens, not parties. We were opposites, and the world, our parents included, chose her light over my quiet intensity. School was a mirror of home. Sophia's charm made her a star, her locker plastered with notes from friends. My locker held textbooks and a single photo of me and Sophia from our fort-building days, a reminder of what we'd lost. Teachers praised Sophia's leadership in group projects, even when she coasted. My contributions, complex algorithms for class assignments, were overlooked, my grades high but my presence faint. Classmates called me the brain, a label that felt more isolating than flattering. I didn't mind the solitude. The computer lab was my refuge, a place where I could build worlds that made sense. But the lack of recognition, the constant comparison to Sophia, wore me down. My parents' absence was starkest here. They attended every one of Sophia's cheerleading competitions, cheering from the bleachers, cameras flashing. My events, tech showcases, science fairs, were empty of their faces. At 16, I presented a security app at a state technology expo, catching the eye of an MIT recruiter. I'd spent months coding it, testing it until my eyes burned. I left a flyer on the kitchen table, hoping they'd come. They didn't. Sophia had a dance recital. Margaret later said, "We didn't know it was a big deal." But it was. That app was my ticket to a future they couldn't imagine, a step toward CyberGuard. Their absence felt like a verdict. My passions didn't matter. Socially, I was an outsider. Sophia's friends filled our house, their laughter echoing through the halls. I wasn't invited to their parties, their world of lip gloss and gossip alien to me. I had a few allies in the computer club, kids like me drawn to logic over popularity, but we were the misfits, unnoticed by the crowd. One spring, I overheard a cheerleader say, "Amelia's so weird. How's she even Sophia's sister?" The words stung, echoing Margaret's sighs at home. I began eating lunch in the lab, headphones on, coding to drown out the noise. My games, simple at first then intricate, became my voice, a way to prove I existed. My biggest high school moment came senior year. I won a national coding competition, earning a full scholarship to MIT. I rushed home, certificate in hand, imagining their pride. Thomas glanced at it, saying, "That's great, Amelia. Did you hear Sophia got into Portland State?" Margaret added, "Boston's so far. You'll need to focus on more than computers there." Their words deflated me. I'd achieved something extraordinary, but to them, it was a footnote to Sophia's local college acceptance. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the butterfly stickers, and decided to stop seeking their approval. My revenge wasn't anger, it was resolve. I'd build a life where I defined my worth. That resolve carried me to MIT, but the pain of being unseen followed, resurfacing years later at Sophia's wedding, where table 19 awaited. Leaving Portland for MIT at 18 was like stepping into a new universe, one where I hoped to finally be seen. I'd earned a full scholarship through a national coding competition, a victory my parents, Margaret and Thomas, barely acknowledged. As I packed my bags, Thomas stood in the doorway, his voice gruff. "Don't get lost in those computers, Amelia," he said. "Find a good husband, someone to ground you." Margaret added, "Boston's far. Call Sophia often, she'll need you." Their words stung, a reminder that my dreams were secondary, even as I headed to one of the world's top schools. I boarded the plane with a mix of fear and defiance, determined to prove them wrong. MIT was everything I'd imagined. Brilliant minds, cutting-edge tech, endless possibilities. But it was also a battleground. As one of the few women in computer science, I faced skepticism from every angle. Classmates assumed I needed help with basic code, their smirks barely hidden. Professors called on male students first, their eyes glazing over when I raised my hand. In group projects, I was often relegated to note-taking, my ideas dismissed until a guy repeated them. The message was clear. This was a man's world, and I was an intruder. One professor, after I aced a midterm, pulled me aside. "Tech's tough for women," he said. "You're smart, but don't expect an easy path." His words weren't meant to wound, but they lit a fire in me. Show them all. The workload was relentless. Late nights debugging code, early mornings cramming for exams. I lived in a dorm with flickering fluorescent lights, my desk buried under textbooks and energy drinks. Socially, I struggled. Most students bonded over parties or hackathons, but I kept to myself, wary of judgment. I'd overhear whispers, "She's too serious. She doesn't belong," echoing my parents' sighs back home. Yet I found solace in the lab, where code didn't care about my gender or my past. I built algorithms that solved complex problems, apps that streamlined data. Each line I wrote was a rebellion against doubt, a step toward defining myself. My first year I faced a crisis. A group project fell apart when my teammates ignored my warnings about a security flaw. The code crashed during our presentation, costing us a top grade. Blame landed on me, the girl who thought she knew better. I spent weeks rebuilding the project alone, proving the flaw was theirs. My professor grudgingly raised my grade, but the isolation lingered. I called home, hoping for comfort. Margaret listened for 5 minutes before saying, "Sophia's stressed about college applications. Maybe you can help her." The call ended, and I sat in my dorm, staring at a photo of Sophia and me from our yellow bedroom days. I realized then, my family wasn't my anchor, they were part of the weight I carried. By junior year I found my stride. I joined a research team developing encryption protocols, earning respect from peers who'd once doubted me. I presented at conferences, my name appearing in academic papers. One summer I interned at a Boston startup, coding features that caught the eye of industry leaders. Yet every milestone came with a shadow. When I shared my internship news with Thomas, he said, "Sounds complicated. Sophia's volunteering at the hospital. She's making a difference." Their dismissal fueled me. I graduated with honors, multiple job offers on the table. But I didn't want to work for someone else. I wanted to build something of my own, something they couldn't ignore. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about proving to myself I was enough. MIT taught me resilience, but it also deepened the rift with my family, a wound I'd carried to Sophia's wedding, where table 19 awaited. After my tea, I returned to Portland briefly, hoping to reconnect with my family. The visit was tense. Margaret criticized my unkempt hair. Thomas asked if I'd found a boyfriend. Sophia, now in nursing school, was their pride. Her every move celebrated. I left after 3 days, renting a tiny apartment in San Francisco, a city pulsing with tech dreams. At 22, I founded CyberGuard, a cybersecurity company born from my MIT research on encryption. The idea was simple. protect businesses from digital threats with software that outsmarted hackers. But the reality was grueling. I had no funding, no team, just a laptop and a vision. My first office was a corner of my apartment, a folding table wedged between a sagging couch and a fridge that hummed too loud. I lived on ramen and coffee, working 18-hour days. I coded relentlessly, refining CyberGuard's core algorithm, a system that could detect and neutralize threats in real time. Sleep was a luxury. Most nights I'd crash on the couch, laptop still open. I pitched to investors, facing rejection after rejection. Too young, they'd say. Too inexperienced. And a woman. Their skepticism echoed my MIT days. But I pressed on. I cold emailed CEOs, attended networking events in borrowed blazers, my confidence a fragile mask. 6 months in, disaster struck. A hacker group targeted my prototype, threatening to leak my code unless I paid a ransom. I couldn't afford it. My bank account held $200. For 48 hours I didn't sleep, coding a patch to secure my system. My hands shook as I typed, fear and fury driving me. I beat the hackers, but the scare nearly broke me. I called Margaret, desperate for support. "That sounds stressful," she said. "Did you hear Sophia got promoted at the hospital?" The call ended, and I stared at my screen, tears blurring the code. Their indifference was louder than ever. Then came a breakthrough. A mid-sized bank, hit by a massive data breach, found my website. They were desperate. Competitors had failed them. I offered CyberGuard's beta version, promising results. For 2 weeks, I worked around the clock, tailoring the software to their needs. When I presented the fix, their CEO, a gruff man who doubted me, shook my hand. "You saved us," he said. That contract, worth $500,000, was CyberGuard's lifeline. I hired my first employee, a fellow MIT grad, and moved to a shared office in Soma. Word spread, and soon I had 3 more clients, banks, startups, even a government agency. Growth brought new challenges. I faced lawsuits from competitors, claiming I'd stolen their tech. The accusations were baseless, but legal fees drained my savings. I learned to negotiate, to stand firm against intimidation. I also faced betrayal. A trusted developer leaked trade secrets to a rival. Firing him was my hardest decision, but it taught me to guard my trust. Through it all, I kept coding, improving CyberGuard's platform. By 25, we had 10 employees, a sleek office, and a reputation for excellence. I was invited to speak at tech conferences, my name whispered as an up-and-comer. Yet, every victory felt hollow without my family's acknowledgement. I sent them articles about CyberGuard, hoping they'd care. Thomas replied once, "Sounds like you're busy. Sophia's planning her engagement." Their silence was a wound I couldn't close. One night, after securing a major client, I found Sophia's old locket in a drawer. I traced its heart shape, remembering our promises. My revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about building a legacy they couldn't diminish. CyberGuard was my proof, my rebellion, my way of saying, "I am enough." But the ache of their absence grew, setting the stage for the moment I'd face them again at Sophia's wedding, at table 19. By 30, CyberGuard was a force in tech, valued at over $200 million. We had 45 employees, a gleaming office in San Francisco's financial district, and clients across the globe. Forbes named me to their 30 under 30 list, calling CyberGuard a game-changer in cybersecurity. My condo overlooked the bay, its floor-to-ceiling windows a symbol of how far I'd come from that cramped Portland bedroom. I spoke at TED, advised policymakers, and mentored young women in STEM. Strangers knew my name, but my family, Margaret, Thomas, Sophia, remained strangers to my world. Success didn't erase the loneliness. I'd walk into my condo after a long day, the city's lights sparkling below, and feel a hollowness. I'd achieved what I'd set out to do, proved the doubters wrong, built something lasting, but the people I'd hoped to impress most didn't care. Our contact was minimal. Christmas calls lasted 15 minutes, their voices distant through the phone. Margaret would ask, "Are you still doing that computer thing?" as if CyberGuard were a hobby. Thomas would interrupt to praise Sophia's nursing career or her engagement to Ethan, a wealthy real estate heir. My updates, new contracts, awards were met with, "That's nice," before the conversation shifted. I tried to bridge the gap. I sent gifts, cash for Sophia's wedding fund, a new car for Margaret. They thanked me politely, but the warmth I craved never came. One year I flew to Portland for Thanksgiving, hoping to reconnect. The dinner was tense. Sophia talked about her wedding plans, Margaret fussed over her, and Thomas asked if I'd met someone special. When I mentioned CyberGuard's latest deal, Margaret said, "Sounds complicated." Sophia's saving lives at the hospital. I left early, driving to the airport in silence. Their dismissal wasn't new, but it cut deeper now, a reminder of my place in their story. Sophia and I barely spoke. She'd text occasionally, asking for advice or money, her messages transactional. I'd reply, hoping for more, but our childhood bond, the butterfly stickers, the blanket forts, felt like a dream. Once, I invited her to San Francisco, offering to show her CyberGuard. She declined, citing work. Later I saw her Instagram, partying with friends, no mention of me. I stopped reaching out, the rejection too heavy. My parents were no better. Margaret sent a birthday card at 30, addressed to Amelia Harper, CEO, as if mocking my title. Thomas called to ask for a loan, not my well-being. The world saw me as a success, but I wrestled with self-doubt. Was I too cold, too focused on work? Had I pushed them away? I started therapy, unpacking the pain of their indifference. My therapist asked, "Why do you need their approval?" I didn't have an answer, but I began to see my pursuit of it as a trap. My revenge wasn't about flaunting success. It was about freeing myself from their judgment. I poured my energy into CyberGuard, launching a foundation to support women in tech. Mentoring others healed parts of me, filling the void my family left. Yet, the invitation to Sophia's wedding stirred old hopes. Thought maybe this time they'd see me. I spent $15,000 on a crystal gift, booked a flight to Portland, believing we could start over. That hope blinded me to the truth. They'd never valued me. Their indifference would culminate at table 19, where I'd face the reality of their abandonment. My story isn't about spite, it's about choosing myself, building a life where I'm enough, even if they never acknowledge it. That choice began here, in the silence between my triumphs and their apathy, a silence I'd break at Sophia's wedding. 5 years had passed since I last saw my family face to face, a stretch of time marked by sparse texts and brief holiday calls. When Sophia's wedding invitation arrived, embossed with gold script, it felt like a lifeline. I was 35, CEO of CyberGuard, a $200 million tech empire, living in a San Francisco condo with views of the Bay. Yet, despite the accolades, Forbes lists, TED Talks, the ache of my family's indifference lingered. The invitation stirred a fragile hope. Maybe this wedding, this moment of celebration, could mend what was broken. Maybe they'd finally see me, not as the odd daughter who coded, but as Amelia Harper, someone worth loving. I spent weeks preparing, pouring thought into every detail. I bought a sapphire hairpin for Sophia, hers something blue, imagining her smile when she opened it. I spent $15,000 on a crystal sculpture for the couple, a piece that caught light like their future seemed to. I booked a suite at the Nines, a luxurious Portland hotel, choosing distance over staying at my parents' house. I'd learned boundaries were my shield, a way to protect my heart from their casual dismissals. As I packed my suitcase, I pictured warm embraces, shared laughter, a chance to reclaim the closeness of our yellow bedroom days. I told myself this could be a new beginning. The flight to Portland was restless. I stared out the window, clouds blurring below, and thought of Sophia at 33, a nurse, radiant in her engagement photos. I thought of Margaret and Thomas, now in their 60s, running their insurance agency with the same polished pride. I wanted to believe they'd changed, that my success, my name in headlines, my company saving banks from hackers, would mean something to them. I rehearsed conversations in my head, imagining Margaret saying, "We're proud of you," Or Thomas asking about CyberGuard with genuine interest. The hope felt fragile, but I clung to it. Landing in Portland, I drove through familiar streets, the Willamette River glinting under gray skies. I checked into the Nines, its sleek lobby a contrast to the knot in my chest. The first event was a family gathering at my parents' home, a pre-wedding dinner. I wore a tailored navy dress, my dark hair swept back, hoping to fit their image of presentable. But the moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. Margaret glanced at me, her smile tight. "Amelia, you look tired." "Long flight," she said, her eyes scanning my outfit with faint disapproval. Thomas clapped my shoulder, his voice booming. "How's that computer thing going?" He didn't wait for an answer, turning to greet Sophia's fiancé, Ethan, a wealthy real estate heir. Sophia was a whirlwind, surrounded by bridesmaids, her blonde hair glowing under the chandelier. She hugged me briefly, her perfume lingering. "Thanks for coming, Amelia," she said, distracted, before darting to another guest. I stood by the fireplace, clutching a glass of wine, watching my family orbit each other. Margaret fussed over Sophia's dress fitting. Thomas swapped business stories with Ethan's father. No one asked about my life, my work, the empire I'd built. I handed Sophia the sapphire hairpin, my voice soft. "For your something blue." Margaret intercepted it, saying, "Leave it on the table, dear," as if it were clutter. The dismissal stung, a sharp echo of my childhood. As the evening wore on, I felt like a ghost in their midst. I tried to join conversations, mentioning a recent CyberGuard deal, but Thomas cut in. "Let's not talk shop tonight." Margaret praised Sophia's hospital work, her voice warm in a way it never was for me. By dessert, I was silent, my hope crumbling. This wasn't a reunion. It was a reminder of my place. On the edges, unseen. I left early, driving back to the hotel, the city's lights blurring through tears. My revenge, I realized, wouldn't be loud or vengeful. It would be quiet, a choice to stop chasing a love they wouldn't give. That night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered why I'd come, but I stayed. For Sophia, for the sister I still loved despite everything. The rehearsal dinner was held at a riverside venue, its windows reflecting the Willamette's dark waters. I arrived in a burgundy gown, hoping to blend in, to feel part of the celebration. The room buzzed with guests, Sophia's bridesmaids, Ethan's family, my parents' country club friends. I scanned the seating chart, my heart sinking when I saw my name at table 7, tucked near the kitchen door, far from the head table where Sophia, Ethan, Margaret, and Thomas sat. Table 7 was a mix of distant cousins and strangers, their conversations revolving around people I didn't know. I forced a smile, sipping wine, but the placement felt deliberate, a silent message. "You don't belong." Sophia glowed at the center of the room, her laughter carrying over the clink of glasses. She wore a cream dress, her blonde hair cascading in waves, every inch the perfect bride. Margaret hovered nearby, adjusting Sophia's shawl, her pride evident. Thomas toasted the couple, calling Sophia our shining star, his voice thick with emotion. He didn't mention me, not even a nod to my presence. I clapped along, my hands heavy, the exclusion a familiar ache. I caught Sophia's eye once, hoping for a moment of connection, but she looked away, drawn back to her bridesmaids. The speeches deepened the wound. Ethan's father praised Sophia's warmth, her dedication as a nurse. Margaret spoke next, her voice trembling as she called Sophia, the heart of our family. I waited foolishly for my name, for some acknowledgement that I was their daughter too. Never came. Instead, Margaret recounted Sophia's childhood triumphs, choir recitals, cheerleading moments I'd watched from the sidelines. I stared at my plate, the food untouched, feeling like I was 10 again, hearing, "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" A woman at my table, Eleanor Peterson, a friend of Margaret's, leaned in. She was 65, her eyes kind but piercing. "Amelia, I read about you in Forbes," she said softly. "Your parents don't understand your world. They're jealous, you know, your success scares them." Her words landed like a stone, heavy with truth. I nodded, unable to speak, the revelation both freeing and painful. Eleanor's insight clarified what I'd felt but couldn't name. My family didn't dismiss me out of indifference alone. My achievements, my divergence from their script, threatened their carefully curated narrative. The evening took a darker turn when Sophia approached my table. Her smile strained. "Amelia, can we talk?" she asked, pulling me aside. I hoped for an apology, a moment of honesty. Instead, she said, "Ethan and I are short $30,000 for our honeymoon. You're doing so well, could you help?" The request stunned me. After 5 years of near silence, after seating me at table 7, this was what she wanted. It wasn't a sisterly plea. It was a transaction. I murmured something vague, my throat tight, and returned to my seat. The wine tasted bitter now, the room too warm. As the night ended, I stood by the exit, watching my family pose for photos. Margaret adjusted Sophia's hair. Thomas laughed with Ethan, their joy a world apart from me. I ordered a double scotch at the bar, the burn grounding me. A cousin asked if I was still into computers, his tone patronizing. I nodded, too tired to explain CyberGuard's global impact. Driving back to the nines, I replayed Eleanor's words. Jealousy, fear. My family's rejection wasn't just neglect. It was a defense against a daughter they couldn't control. My revenge, I decided, wouldn't be giving Sophia that money. It would be living a life where their approval no longer mattered. But the wedding day loomed, and with it, more tests of my resolve. The morning of Sophia's wedding dawned crisp, Portland sky a pale blue. I woke in my hotel suite, the weight of the rehearsal dinner still heavy. I dressed carefully, a silver gown that shimmered softly, my dark hair pinned elegantly. I wanted to honor Sophia, to be present for her day, despite the cracks in my heart. Driving to the church, I passed the river, its calm surface mocking my turmoil. I told myself to focus on love, on the sister I'd once braided hair for, but the hope I'd carried to Portland was nearly gone. The church was a vision of white roses and candlelight, guests filling the pews in a hum of anticipation. I checked the seating chart, my stomach dropping when I saw my name assigned to row 8, far from the family section at the front. Row 8 was for distant relatives and colleagues, not the bride's sister. I took my seat, the wooden pew cold, and watched my family at the altar. Sophia, radiant in her gown, stood beside Ethan. Margaret and Thomas sat in the first row, their faces glowing with pride. I was an outsider, excluded from their inner circle. The ceremony began, and I tried to focus on Sophia's vows, her voice steady as she promised forever to Ethan. But my eyes kept drifting to the empty space where I should have been. During the family blessing, I stepped forward, hoping to join the circle of hands. Margaret caught my eye, her expression unyielding, and the group closed without me. I returned to row 8, my face burning, the rejection public and final. The program listed family members, Margaret, Thomas, Ethan's parents, but my name was absent, as if I didn't exist. I retreated to the church library during a break, needing air. The room was quiet, lined with old books, a sanctuary from the crowd. I answered work emails, the familiarity of CyberGuard grounding me. A bridesmaid found me confused. "Why aren't you with the family?" she asked. I forced a smile, saying, "Just catching up on work." But her question echoed Eleanor's words from the night before. My family didn't want me close. Their fear, their jealousy, kept me at a distance. I thought of leaving, booking a flight back to San Francisco, but I stayed. Not for them, but for the little girl who'd promised Sophia forever in our blanket forts. The reception loomed, and I braced myself. I drove to the venue, a grand ballroom overlooking the river, its elegance a stark contrast to my isolation. I passed a mirror, catching my reflection, poised, successful, but alone. I wondered if Sophia felt my absence as keenly as I felt hers. Had she noticed row 8, the missing name in the program? Or was she too wrapped in her day to care? The answer came soon enough, at table 19, where the final blow awaited. My revenge wasn't in walking away yet. It was in surviving this moment, in holding my head high despite their dismissal. I entered the ballroom, steeling myself for what was to come, knowing this day would change me forever. The reception ballroom was a sea of elegance. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, laughter rising like music. I found my place at table 19, tucked behind a massive pillar, the view of the head table obscured. Table 19 was a collection of misfits. Ethan's distant uncle, a chatty vendor, strangers who barely spoke. The pillar loomed like a metaphor, blocking me from my family's world. I sat, my silver gown catching the dim light, and ordered another scotch. The sting of row 8 lingered, but table 19 felt final, a declaration. You are not one of us. From my seat I could just make out the head table. Sophia sparkled, her gown catching every eye. Margaret and Thomas flanked her, their smiles wide, toasting with Ethan's parents. The speeches began, each one praising Sophia's kindness, her beauty, her heart. No one mentioned me, not as sister, not as family. I clapped mechanically, my hands numb, the exclusion a knife twisting deeper. I thought of CyberGuard, of the empire I'd built, and wondered why it wasn't enough to earn a place here. Then a shift. Ethan's cousin, seated nearby, leaned over, his eyes wide. Wait, you're Amelia Harper, the CyberGuard CEO. I saw you in Forbes. His voice carried, drawing attention. Ethan, passing by, overheard and stopped. You're that Amelia Harper? He asked, incredulous. I nodded, my voice steady despite the churn inside. Yes, that's me. Ethan's face lit up. I had no idea Sophia's sister was a tech star. We need to talk. My firm could use your expertise. He called over his father, who'd ignored me earlier, now eager to shake my hand. Suddenly my family noticed. Margaret appeared, her smile forced. Amelia, why didn't you tell us you knew Ethan's family? She said, as if I'd hidden my identity. Thomas joined, clapping my shoulder. That's my daughter, the entrepreneur, he boasted to a guest, his voice loud. Sophia approached, her expression unreadable. I didn't realize you were such a big deal, she said, her tone half admiring, half awkward. They pulled me to their table, introducing me to investors, friends, anyone who'd listen. Amelia's our pride, Margaret said, her words hollow. Thomas claimed my business sense came from him, a lie that burned. Their sudden pride wasn't love, it was opportunism. They hadn't cared when I was at table 19, unseen. But now, with Ethan's recognition, I was a trophy, a way to elevate their status. I stood among them, smiling for photos, but inside I was unraveling. I thought of Eleanor's words. They were jealous, afraid of my success. Now they wanted to claim it. Margaret whispered about setting me up with a suitable man, as if my worth lay in marriage, not CyberGuard. Thomas pitched a joint venture, his eyes on my wealth. I excused myself, stepping onto the balcony, the river dark below. The air was cool, grounding me. I saw it clearly. Their love was conditional, tied to what I could offer. Sophia's $30,000 request, their parade of me now. It was all transactional. My revenge wasn't in rejecting them outright. It was in choosing myself, in walking away from a family that only valued me when others did. I returned to table 19, said goodbye to the uncle who'd called me too smart, and left the ballroom. The wedding wasn't over, but my need for their approval was. Table 19 was my breaking point, but also my liberation, the moment I chose a life where I defined my worth. Table 19 was my breaking point, the final act in a lifetime of being sidelined by my family. I stood on the balcony of the reception ballroom, the Willamette River dark and still below, my silver gown catching the cool Portland night air. The realization had crystallized. My family, Margaret, Thomas, Sophia, didn't value me for who I was. They'd ignored me for years, seated me at the edges of their world, only to parade me as a trophy when Ethan, Sophia's groom, recognized my name from Forbes. Their sudden pride wasn't love. It was a transaction, a claim on my success to boost their status. I was 35, CEO of CyberGuard, a $200 million tech empire, but to them I was only as good as the clout I could bring. I returned to the ballroom, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. I couldn't leave without speaking my truth, not to hurt them, but to free myself from the weight of their indifference. I found them near the head table, laughing with Ethan's parents, their faces flushed with wine and victory. Sophia glowed in her wedding gown, Margaret adjusted her veil, and Thomas boasted about some business deal. I approached, my voice steady despite the tremor inside. "I need to talk to you," I said, gesturing to a quiet corner. They followed, their expressions shifting. Margaret's smile tight, Thomas's brow furrowed, Sophia's eyes wary. I faced them, the words I'd buried for decades rising like a tide. "For 5 years you barely spoke to me," I began. "You dismissed my work, my life, my dreams. I built CyberGuard from nothing, saved companies from ruin, made it to Forbes, but you never cared. You seated me at table 19 like I was a stranger, not your daughter, not your sister." My voice cracked, but I pressed on. "And now, because Ethan knows my name, you act proud? You introduce me to investors, claim my success as yours. I'm not your trophy. I'm done chasing your approval." Margaret's face hardened. "Amelia, don't be dramatic," she said, her tone sharp, the same one she'd used when I was 10, asking why I couldn't be more like Sophia. "We've always supported you. You're too sensitive." Her words were a reflex, a denial of the truth I'd laid bare. Thomas stepped in, his voice patronizing. "We're family, Amelia. We've been busy, sure, but we've always been there. You're blowing this out of proportion." His dismissal stung, a reminder of every milestone they'd missed. My MIT graduation, CyberGuard's first contract, my TED Talk. Sophia, silent until now, spoke, her voice soft but guarded. "I didn't know you felt this way," she said, her blue eyes meeting mine. "Growing up, I always felt inferior to you, Amelia. You were so smart, so driven. I didn't know how to reach you." Her admission caught me off guard, a glimpse of the sister I'd loved in our yellow bedroom days. For a moment, I saw her vulnerability, trapped in the same family dynamic that had diminished me. But it wasn't enough to erase the years of silence, the $30,000 honeymoon request, the seat at table 7. "I tried, Sophia," I said, my voice breaking. "I flew here, spent $15,000 on your gift, hoping we could start over. But you didn't see me either." The air was thick with tension. Margaret crossed her arms, her lips a thin line. "You're making a scene at your sister's wedding," she hissed. "This is selfish." Thomas nodded, adding, "Let's talk later when you're calmer." Their refusal to listen, to acknowledge my pain, was the final blow. I looked at them, my mother, my father, my sister, and saw strangers. "There won't be a later," I said quietly. "I deserve better than this. I'm done." I turned away, my heart heavy but lighter, the truth a weight lifted from my chest. As I walked back to table 19, Eleanor Peterson, Margaret's friend who'd seen my Forbes feature, caught my arm. "You're stronger than they know," she whispered. "Don't let them dim your light." Her words, kind and true, anchored me. I nodded, tears prickling, and gathered my things. My family didn't follow, didn't call after me. They returned to their celebration, their world intact without me. My revenge wasn't in that confrontation. It was in choosing myself, in refusing to beg for a love they wouldn't give. I left the corner of the ballroom, knowing I'd never return to their table, literal or figurative, again. I left the reception quietly, slipping out of the ballroom without fanfare. The chandeliers still glowed, the music still played, but I was done. I paused at table 19, my seat empty beside Ethan's chatty uncle, who'd called me too smart for some to handle. I smiled faintly, leaving my scotch glass behind, a small rebellion against the night's weight. The pillar loomed, a silent witness to my exclusion, but it no longer held power over me. I walked through the venue's grand doors, the Portland night cool against my skin, my silver gown trailing like a shadow. At the 9s, I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, the city's lights flickering through the window. My hands trembled as I dialed Julia Bennett, my best friend in San Francisco, the one person who'd always seen me. It was late, but she answered, her voice warm. "Amelia, what's wrong?" I broke, sobbing as I recounted the wedding, Table 7, row 8, table 19, the confrontation. They didn't care, Julia, I said. They only wanted me when I was useful. Julia listened, her silence a bomb. Then firmly she said, "You built your own table, Amelia. You're Amelia Harper, CEO, trailblazer, my hero. You don't need their scraps." Her words, fierce and true, pulled me back from the edge. I cried until I was empty, the grief of losing the family I'd wanted spilling out. I packed my bags that night, leaving the sapphire hairpin and crystal gift behind. They were symbols of a hope I no longer needed. At the airport, I boarded a red-eye to San Francisco, the plane's hum a quiet comfort. As we ascended, Portland's lights faded below, and I felt a shift. I wasn't running away. I was choosing to return to a life where I belonged. Landing at SFO, the bay's familiar sparkle greeted me, a reminder of CyberGuard, my team, my chosen family. I drove to my condo, the Golden Gate Bridge looming in the distance, its red arches a symbol of freedom. At home, I found a stack of messages from my family, waiting like traps. Margaret's text read, "You embarrassed us, Amelia. We expected better." Thomas emailed, upset about a missed connection with Ethan's investors, not my pain. Sophia sent a voice note, her tone hesitant. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply, not yet. Their words confirmed what I'd seen. They valued what I could offer, not me. I stood on my balcony, the bay breeze cool, and let the hurt settle. My revenge wasn't in cutting them off. It was in building a life where their absence didn't define me. That week, I returned to CyberGuard, my office a haven of purpose. My team greeted me with orchids, their support a contrast to Portland's coldness. I threw myself into work, launching a new project to protect small businesses from cyber threats. Each line of code, each meeting was a step toward healing. Julia came over, bringing wine and laughter, reminding me of the family I'd built. The wedding had broken me open, but it also set me free, showing me who I was without their approval. I wasn't the girl in the yellow bedroom anymore, begging to be seen. I was Amelia Harper, whole, enough, ready to live on my terms. A month after the wedding, I sat in my San Francisco condo, the bay's lights steady below. I'd avoided my family's calls, needing space to process the hurt of Table 19, the confrontation, their transactional pride. But I couldn't run forever. I needed to set boundaries, not to punish them, but to protect myself. I started with a letter, my words careful but firm, addressed to Margaret, Thomas, and Sophia. "I need space to redefine our relationship," I wrote. "For years I chased your approval, but I'm done. I love you, but I deserve a life where I'm valued for me, not my success." Margaret's reply came quickly, a voicemail laced with irritation. "This is how families are, Amelia," she said. "You're being unreasonable." Thomas texted, "Don't throw away family over a misunderstanding." Their responses echoed the wedding. Denial, dismissal, no accountability. Sophia's message was different, a letter, her handwriting shaky. "I'm sorry I made you feel unseen," she wrote. "I was caught in their world too. Can we try again?" Her words stirred the sister I'd loved, but trust was fragile. I replied, "I need time, Sophia. Let's start slow." I began therapy, a step I'd resisted for years. My therapist, a calm woman with sharp insights, helped me unpack the grief of Table 19, the years of being less than Sophia. "You're grieving the family you wanted," she said. "That's okay. It's how you make room for the life you deserve." Grieving hurt, but it freed me. I learned to see my boundaries as love, for myself, for the girl who'd coded late nights, hoping to be enough. I stopped answering Margaret's calls, limited Thomas's texts, and kept Sophia at a distance, our talks tentative but honest. My revenge wasn't in silence or spite. It was in choosing peace, in building a life where I didn't need their table. CyberGuard became my anchor, my team, my family. I launched a mentorship program for women in tech, pouring my energy into others' dreams. Each step forward was a boundary, a declaration. I am enough. Sophia and I began to talk more, small steps toward something new, but my parents remained distant, their world unchanged. I was okay with that. Table 19 had taught me to walk away, not out of anger but out of love, for myself, for the future I'd build, free from their shadows. Table 19 was my breaking point, but it was also my beginning. Leaving Sophia's wedding, I returned to San Francisco, not as the girl who'd chased my family's approval, but as Amelia Harper, ready to build a life on my terms. At 35, I was CEO of CyberGuard, a tech empire worth over $200 million, but success meant nothing without connection. The yellow bedroom days with Sophia were gone, and my parents, Margaret and Thomas, remained distant, their world unchanged. I realized family isn't just blood. It's the people who see you, who choose you, who stay. So I built my own. Julia Bennett, my best friend, was the cornerstone. She'd held me through the wedding's fallout, her fierce belief in me a lifeline. We'd meet at our favorite Mission District cafe, sipping lattes, laughing over shared dreams. Her wife, Lena, joined us, her warmth filling gaps my family left. They invited me to their home for holidays, their table crowded with love, not judgment. I found more allies at CyberGuard. My team, a mix of coders, dreamers, and fighters. Priya, my lead engineer, became a sister, her late-night debugging sessions turning into confessions about life. We'd share takeout in the office, her stories of growing up in Mumbai grounding me. Misa Marcus, a former MIT classmate, was my rock, his dry humor pulling me through tough days. They celebrated my wins, mourned my losses, and never asked me to be less than I was. I expanded this family through my work. I launched a mentorship program for women in tech, pouring my heart into young coders who, like me, felt unseen. At a workshop in Oakland, I met Zoe, a 19-year-old with a knack for encryption and a past like mine, parents who didn't get her. We bonded over code and coffee, and I became her mentor, her cheerleader, her family. Watching her land her first job, her eyes bright with pride, healed parts of me. I hosted dinners for my ments, their laughter echoing in my condo, a new kind of music. These connections weren't bound by blood, but by choice, by shared resilience. My relationship with Sophia flickered, a fragile thread. We talked occasionally, her apologies sincere but cautious. I invited her to a CyberGuard event, hoping to rebuild. She came, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a dress, and for a moment, I saw the sister who'd shared my blanket forts. We're still navigating, our bond a work in progress, but I'm open, guarded but hopeful. Margaret and Thomas, though, remain distant. Their calls dwindled, their denial unbroken. I grieved them, but I didn't chase them. My revenge wasn't cutting them off. It was finding joy without their approval, in a family I chose, one that saw me for me, not my Forbes cover or my bank account. This chosen family became my strength. They taught me love isn't earned, it's given freely. Julia's hugs, Priya's loyalty, Zoe's trust, they filled the void of Table 19. I'm no longer the girl in Portland, begging to be enough. I'm Amelia, whole, surrounded by people who choose me every day. If you're feeling invisible, know this. You can build your own table, too, with those who see your light. If Table 19 taught me anything, it's that you don't need anyone's permission to claim your worth. My story, growing up in Sophia's shadow, building CyberGuard, facing my family's rejection at her wedding, isn't about revenge in the petty sense. It's about avenging your own heart, choosing a life where you're enough, even when those closest to you can't see it. I'm Amelia Harper, 35, a woman who walked away from a family that didn't value me, not to hurt them, but to save myself. And if I can do it, so can you. The lesson of Table 19 is universal. Your value isn't tied to others' approval. 4 years I chased Margaret's praise, Thomas's nod, Sophia's love, thinking their validation would make me whole. But wholeness comes from within, from the courage to stand alone and say, I am enough. Therapy helped me see this, each session peeling back layers of pain. I grieved the family I wanted, but that grief made room for joy. Joy in my work, my chosen family, my future. If you're stuck seeking approval, ask yourself, who's at your table? Are they lifting you up or holding you back? You deserve a seat where you're seen. My future is bright, not because of CyberGuard's success, but because I've learned to choose myself. I'm expanding my mentorship program, aiming to reach 1,000 women by next year, giving them the tools to code their own paths. CyberGuard's launching a free platform for nonprofits, protecting them from cyber threats, a way to give back. Personally, I'm open to love, to building a family of my own, but I'm not rushing. I'm content with Julia's laughter, Priya's loyalty, Zoe's dreams. Sophia and I are rebuilding, slow and steady, but my parents remain a closed door, and I'm at peace with that. To you watching this, I say, don't wait for someone to move you from table 19. Walk away, not in anger but in love for yourself. Build your own table, fill it with people who see your spark. Share your story in the comments. Have you had to choose yourself? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to join this journey. My revenge was finding freedom, not in proving them wrong but in proving me right. I'm not defined by their indifference, by row 8 or table 7. I'm defined by my resilience, my heart, my choice to keep going. As I look out at the San Francisco Bay, its lights steady, I see a future unbound by the past. I'm not the girl in the yellow bedroom, staring at butterfly stickers, hoping to be loved. I'm Amelia Harper, CEO, mentor, friend, whole. My story isn't over. It's just beginning, and it's one of hope, not revenge. You have that power too. Choose yourself, build your table, and let your light shine. The world is waiting, and so am I, ready to cheer you on from my own table, built with love for me, for you, for us all. My journey, from the yellow bedroom days with Sophia, through the pain of table 19, to building CyberGuard and my chosen family, wasn't about revenge in the way you might think. It was about avenging my own heart, choosing a life where I'm enough, despite my family's indifference. I'm Amelia Harper, 35, a woman who walked away from Portland's shadows to shine in San Francisco's light. Table 19 taught me that worth isn't earned through others' approval, it's claimed from within. If you've ever felt unseen, like you're stuck at the back of someone's world, know this: you have the power to build your own table. Choose yourself, surround yourself with those who see your spark. Share your story in the comments. Have you had to walk away to find your worth? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to join our community. Your voice matters, and I'm here to cheer you on. Don't wait for a seat at their table. Stand up, claim your place, and let your light burn bright. You're enough just as you are, and the world needs your story. But my story doesn't end here. What happens when the past knocks again? Next time, I'll share how an unexpected call from Sophia tested my boundaries, and how a new challenge at CyberGuard pushed me to redefine success. Will I open the door to my family, or keep it closed? And what secrets did table 19 hide that only surfaced later? Stay tuned to find out. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. This channel is your space for stories of resilience, of rising above, of choosing yourself. If my journey from table 19 to freedom moved you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build a community where no one sits in the back row. As I stand here, the San Francisco Bay sparkling below, I'm not just Amelia Harper, CEO. I'm a woman who chose her own table, and I'm inviting you to do the same. Thank you for watching, for being here, for believing in your own light. Until next time, keep shining, keep choosing you, and let's meet again at a table built for us all.